Hey guys, how's it going? I'm comparing the 28 to 70 versus 24 to 70 Nikkor. I'm gonna be doing a quick comparison, just image quality, how they handle, how they feel in the hand, then my experience for having them 2 to 3 years, and then given your restrictions, which one you should get. So to start off, I'm going to give my opinions of the 28 to 70. And this was my first mid-range zoom lens. I did end up upgrading the 24 to 85, but then I ended up selling it once I got the 24 to 70. So the 28 to 70 is the first mid-range zoom lens. I really did like it. It was a bit, it really is, it's from a different era. It's just a bit soft, has a bit of chromatic aberration. It's not anything too bad, especially for someone starting out like I did, because I predominantly just shot sports and then photojournalism, and it really didn't make too big of a difference for me because my main lenses were the 24 to the 70 to 200 and the 300 2.8, and that's mainly what I shot. But whenever it was like events or I was out doing like an assignment, I did need it. And the thing was, like, mostly we shot print, and then we were doing web stuff, and at most we were doing like 8 megapixel photos, so it didn't really make too big of a difference for me. On the wide end at 28, it has some chromatic aberration. It's really not that bad. And then at 70, it's a little soft, so I predominantly ended up shooting at about f4 to f3.5 whenever I could when I was on the long end with that lens. It is quick. It is one of the first generation AFS lenses from Nikon. It still has its aperture ring, so if you guys are shooting on film and you guys might want something like this, I don't know why you really would. I would just go grab an older prime myself. But if that interests you, that is a lens to get. And then about 2 years after I bought 28 to 70, I did get the 24 to 70. And that's pretty much been stuck on my camera body ever since. It's just superior in almost every way, maybe except build quality, because it does have an issue with stiff zoom rings. But pretty much across the board, it's sharper, it's wider, it's better bokeh, and it's the better lens to me. So that's my 2 cents of it, just like as a general view. However, you do have to look at price. The 28 starts at probably about like 400 to 500 used for a decent shaped one, whereas the 24 to 70 is going for about 1,000 right now, and that's probably how it's going to be for a little while because the 24 to 70 VR is out. So right now I'm going to dive into the image quality of each one. I'm going to go see how they are at the corners, how they are at the center, and then from the short end to the long end. I hope you guys enjoy. Let me know if you have any questions, and I have attached all the samples at the link below.
Alright guys, so let's go ahead and start this comparison. I went out today, it was bright, there were barely any clouds in the sky, but I went out, shot a wall, and I did it all the way from 24 up to 70, and I did it at 2.8, f4, and f5.6. So first of all, let's go to the wide end, look at it. You can just see how much wider 24 is than 28. Now it isn't much, but it really does make a difference, especially when you're in a tight situation. So for me, that really is an advantage of the 24 to 70. Some of you guys might not need something that wide, but for me, especially if you shoot events or anything like that, it really is important to be that little bit wider. So now let's go to both these lenses at 28 wide open. And I'm going to start with the center. So this is kind of what shocked me, how sharp the 28 was compared to the 24 to 70. And I kind of expected this at the wide end, but I really didn't expect the corner performance to be that much better on the older lens. So you can kind of see here how much detail is still preserved in the 28 to 70's images, but you can see in this corner the 24 to 70 is sharper further into the corner than the 28 to 70 is. Now this I found is probably the most telling part of the image. You can kind of see how 24 to 70 handles the more high contrast situations where you have like a dark gray on a lighter color on this tan to beige color, and you can just see that the 28 to 70 kind of washes it out, whereas the 24 to 70 wide open, it's crisp, they're clean, the edges are all nice. So that really is a big advantage for the 24 to 70 if you need that sharpness wide open. But let's say we go down to 5.6 at 28 millimeters, and here let's look at the center. It's really hard to tell them apart here. I personally couldn't really choose a winner between these two at 28. They're pretty sharp right across the frame, and then in the far corners it's kind of the same story once again, where the 28 to 70 is sharper than 24 to 70. And surprisingly, it does this almost all the way throughout the zoom range, maybe with the exception of 35 millimeters, but even at 50 and 70, the 28 to 70 is sharper in those very far corners. Alright guys, so now let's jump into 35. So at 35 I'm going to do the same thing. This is at 2.8. You go into the middle, This is kind of where the 24-70 starts going ahead of the 28-70, especially in the center from about 35 upward. You can just see it sharp or wide open. And then the corners, they're really just about the same. I really don't see that big of a difference between them. And you can kind of see here just how the 28-70 kind of handles this. It's not too far from the center of the frame on this, but you can kind of see you have the fringing here. The whites just aren't as it just doesn't handle the whites quite as well as I would expect. But let's stop them both down to f5.6, and once again let's take a look at the center. So they're about the same. I'd probably give a bit of a edge to the 24-70, but it's really not that big of an that big of an improvement at 35. And we'll go to the corners, and they're really just about the same at 35. There's not really a big difference. There's not any vignetting once you get down to f5.6, and it really looks good. There's not terribly much distortion at this focal length either. So now we're at 50 millimeters, and you can kind of see there's just a little bit of distortion when you start getting to 50 on both lenses. But at the center, you definitely see that the 24-70 is a lot sharper than 28-70. And we're gonna go to the edge, and you can kind of see there's a lot of fringing here on the 28, and it gets a lot worse towards the corner. But when it gets to the very far corners of the frame, the 28-70 is a lot sharper than the 24-70, and it seems to be like this. 28, 50, and 70, the 28-70 is sharper than the 24-70, and I really I had to run this test a couple times just to make sure I wasn't out of focus or nothing was out of the plane, but it really did surprise me that that's the case. And you can kind of see here, it's just when you get to the very far edges of the frame, the 28-70 is a little better wide open. But once again, it depends how you're using it, because the center sharpness is a lot better on the 24-70. So now let's stop them both down to f5.6, and once again we're going to go look at the center. Sharpness is really similar at 50. I still have to give the edge to the 24-70, but the 28 really holds its own. The chromatic aberration has gone down a good bit. You don't really see much, but you do see a little bit right in here. And then once we go to the corners, once again, the 28-70 is sharper in the corners than the 24-70. So there just seems to be a theme throughout, that the 28-70 is just a little bit sharper in the corners. And now let's go to 70 millimeters. So at 70, at the center, this is really where you will see the difference between these two lenses. 24-70 is so much sharper at 70 than the 28 is. I mean, you can kind of just see how it just smudges these little details. But in the corners, surprise, the 28 is a little better, and that just really surprised me how well this lens did for its age, especially in terms of corner sharpness. And then let's stop them both down to f5.6. The vignetting's gone. The center sharpness, it's still better on the 24-70 than the 28-70. Now, one thing to note about the 28-70, for some reason, and I ended up having to research this, even though the focus hits from about 28 to about 50 and it's spot on every time, at 70 for some reason the lens just always focuses a little bit off, so it's almost never this sharp, and I have no idea why that's the case. But just so you know, from real world use, and I've had these lenses for quite a while, that at 70 the 24-70 is a lot sharper. And here we go, we can go to the corners, and you see that the 28-70 is better once again. And now I have a bokeh test to do between the two of these. So we have the 28-70, or actually, let me put the 24-70 on the right, and then the 28-70 on the left. So in terms of bokeh, they're similar. I thought there'd be a bigger difference than there was. I don't know if it's situational, but how I shot this, I focused on this flower here in the middle, f2.8 ISO 100. And then I just wanted to see the quality of the bokeh here. I still think the bokeh on the 24-70 is slightly better in my opinion. I think it's a lot smoother, and for some reason the 28 kind of, sometimes the bokeh has these onion rings in it that I don't really like or care for. So that's just something to note. But the bokeh really is similar. It's not that different on either of these two lenses. So for the last one, I went out to the parking lot and I went and just found there's a tire there, and I was like, to show the bokeh once again. But you can kind of see it here, I think, more pronounced than the previous one. Just the 24-70 is a lot creamier. If you look closely, you can kind of see the cement in these bricks. And so I don't know if that's enough for you to justify getting the 24-70 over the 28-70, but for me, it's little things like that that really do make the 24-70 that much better of a lens.
All right, so after seeing those samples and from my personal experience, I'm just going to gauge the lenses against each other. So for me, the 28-70 was my first mid-range zoom lens. I'd already had a couple primes in that range, but I just needed something with the versatility. And I was on a budget. My main lenses were usually the 70-200 and the 300-2.8, and that's really what I put my money towards. And so I kind of cheaped out on this lens, but it's not a bad lens. As you can see, I used it for a number of years. I shot a ton of games with it, and really, unless you're shooting it professionally, you really don't need the 24-70. It gives you a lot of room to grow with the 28. It's versatile. It's built really well. You can resell it in a year or two and not lose much money at all. And it's really just built well. So I really have no gripes with it. Depending on your budget, you have to realize one's under $600, the other one's about $1,000. So gauge it, see which one's right for you. In terms of sharpness, if sharpness is your thing, if better bokeh is your thing, the 24-70 is the way to go. Now, to defend the 28, what I shot personally, I never noticed the corners. Like, I was pretty shocked when I found out the 28 had sharper corners across the frame. The corner sharpness really doesn't matter. It's really just that center sharpness that really matters. So look at it, see what you need. If you have any questions, let me know below, and I'll try to answer them the best you can. But really, you can't go wrong with either of these two lenses. It performs really well compared against it. If you really can't even afford the 28-70, look at something like the 24-85 millimeter, which was the kit lens with the D600 and the D610. So I want to thank you guys for watching. Ask any questions below. The samples are below as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you guys.